Hey, welcome to the Thursday, November 14th, regular meeting of the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners. I'd like to call this meeting to order. All in favor?
Aye.
May you please rise to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so that brings us to the Treasury report, but Jamie is not here tonight, so a copy of the report is available on our website under the financial section. So that brings us to Chief Tween's report. Chief?
Thank you. Good evening. Total alarm activity for October was 374 alarms, 9 fire-related, 212 EMS or rescue-related, and mutual aid was given one time to the city of Mount Vernon. I want to thank the members of Local 916 for their participation in the October Halloween events. The district sends an engine with on-duty members, but the off-duty firefighters' participation in handing out candy and entertaining the young residents helped make the Eastchester Town Hall Truck or Treat, the Tuckahoe Creepy Candy Crawl, and the Greenville Elementary School Trunk or Treat even more successful. Thank you to all the members that participated. The 5 probationary firefighters in the Career Fire Academy are on track to graduate in mid-January. Vehicle equipment and maintenance is being done in-house as much as possible by part-time mechanic Hank Henninger. Hank's report and Tim Dalton's maintenance report for October was emailed to the board on November 7th. Fire prevention and code enforcement activities continue with numerous plan reviews and inspections. October was Fire Prevention Month, and Captain Thomas Pinaval and the members conducted fire safety demonstrations for over 1,500 students at the local schools. Thank you to the members that participated. Fire prevention reports for October were emailed to the board also on November 7th. Currently, there is 1 member out on long-term absence, and 1 member is assigned to light duty and is working with ESONG on digitizing the fire prevention records. I request the board's authorization to hire Dragon Rescue Management to teach a course in elevator emergency management operations level. The cost is $21,600 for 6 days of training divided amongst the 4 groups, or approximately $300 per member, each member receiving 1 day of classroom training and 1 day of operational field training. New York Presbyterian Westchester Hospital, the former Lawrence Hospital, has agreed to allow us to use 2 of their elevators for the Ford Field training days. The proposal was emailed to the board this afternoon. I also request the board's authorization to sign the Hazmat Vehicle Intermunicipal Agreement with Westchester County Department of Emergency Services, subject to Coughlin and Gerhardt legal review and our insurance company review of the IMA. The IMA was emailed to the board on November 13th. Basically, what's going to happen is we had a vehicle from the county, an old 2004 bus. It was a wheelchair bus that they gave to us to use for hazmat response. And since the age of the bus was 20 years old, it wasn't worth fixing with all the issues it had. So the county wants to provide us with a new vehicle, but the county is going to own it. The county is going to pay for normal wear and tear, such as oil maintenance, tires, brakes, things like that. If we have any excessive wear or damage caused by us, we would have to fix that at our expense. So it would be a box truck, and it would be used to hold hazmat equipment that was previously being held in that county bus that they had given us. As the holidays are approaching, I have a few safety reminders for the residents. Please use caution when cooking holiday dinners, and please keep candles out of the reach of pets and children. Do not park your cars or trucks on leaf piles, as the vehicle catalytic converters get very hot and can catch the leaves on fire. Please do not obstruct fire hydrants with the piles of leaves, and if you have a gardener, please ask them not to block the hydrants or cover the hydrants with the leaf piles. Never use a power strip for a space heater, as it cannot handle the higher amperage of the heater. And congratulations for the promotion of Lieutenant David Stupple to captain. and firefighter John Pinto to the position of lieutenant, effective Saturday, November 16th. And finally, I ask the board to close tonight's meeting with a moment of silence in memory of volunteer members Joseph Henwood, who passed on October 5th of this year, and Nicholas Campanelli, who passed away on November 12th of this year. Joseph Henwood was a member of the Eastchester Fire Patrol Company for over 20 years, from August 1st, 1955 to March 11th, 1976. Nicholas Campanelli, badge number 1407, was a member of the North End Hose Company for over 7 years, from April 13th, 1961 to May 16th, 1968. That's the end of my report.
Thanks, Chief. Isan, please.
Commissioners, for the Fire District election with updates, all the materials are available on the Eastchester Fire District website. Should anyone be asking about absentee ballots, candidate petitions, the deadline is November 20th at 4 p.m. So please, if you have a petition, you could drop it off by November 20th at 4 p.m. at headquarters, 255 Main Street. At this time, we have 3 candidates officially on the ballot. And thank you to the election inspectors who have already expressed interest in working with our election. We're still in need of election inspectors, so if there's anyone you would recommend or are interested, you could send them my way. But I'm going to be sending out another request shortly. For our community outreach, we've had 4 posts on our social media platforms for October. Community forums, continued work on the After the Fire pamphlet project for our website and for handouts. There's also a Spanish version for resident safety and lithium-ion battery safety that's being prepared in collaboration with fire prevention. Website notices, ongoing updates to the website and social media, records retention options, and continued collaboration with Chief Tween on an updated annual report for 2024 for the Eastchester Fire District. For foils, we received 3 foils for our office, and for records, the continued preparation for the relocation for our 2024 records to Station 3 from headquarters, and the rest as usual. So that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Isan. Okay, brings us to just one minor item, which is payment of bills. So a motion here, be it resolved, the Board of Fire Commissioners approves to pay the bills and vouchers as presented. The board has been supplied with 1 set of bills and 1 credit card bill. Chief Tween has reviewed all prior to the meeting, except tertiary claims and those specifically marked as reviewed by the treasurer. The treasurer has requested the board approve the following. Warrant number 1, dated 11/14/24, in the amount of $3,533,005.48. A credit card bill dated 11/18/24 for $1,964.86, for a total of $534,970.34. I'll make a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Commissioner Laurie?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranalone?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, so Chief, as far as your request, we haven't had a chance, I think, have you had a chance to look at the emails that Chief sent to us on both the box truck and the proposal for?
I did see it, yes.
Okay, any thoughts or comments? Because I have no problem with either one.
No, the same way. It's great that the county is buying them for us. I believe they're supplying them for several departments in the county.
Us and Fairview Fire Department.
Okay,
So the other ones have their own vehicles, like New Rochelle has their own vehicle, White Plains has their own vehicle. But we needed them because our buses were not worth fixing.
right. Yeah, so definitely something that, it does come in handy when we need it, so it's good to have it.
I'll take care of these either tonight or I'll come to your office, Chief.
Okay.
All right, that's really all we had on the agenda for this evening. Our next meeting will be December 12th, 2 days after the election, at Town Hall here. That brings us to comments from Local 916.
Thank you. Joe Costanzo, President, Local 916. I just want to congratulate Lieutenant David Stupple and Firefighter John Pinto on their promotions, and wish everybody a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Did you want to discuss the Station 3 proposal for the engineering? Because at some point, that floor has to be dealt with.
Hang on a second, was that? oh,
I
sorry,
think
sorry.
I sent that to the board probably two weeks ago or so.
You did, why did I not see that? Hold on a second. Was that in tonight's paperwork?
I didn't put it in my report. I thought it was already on the agenda, but, you know, I mean, a month's not gonna make a big difference, but we have to decide, you know, if the board wants to go with the
I know
Plan
we
A.
had the two proposals, one for the floor and one
Right.
for the,
Yeah, so you really need to decide which one you wanna move forward with. Do you wanna fix the floor and open up the archway, or do you wanna, you know, start from scratch?
Is it possible to get,
well, we had an estimate of what, we had a general idea of what it would take to, what it would cost to do the opening and the floor. And we still had, we had a ballpark of what it would cost to,
Well, so they said they were gonna hire contractors to come up with a accurate price for this area, because I guess different parts of the country, it would have different costs. So their cost is, for the new firehouse, I think it said it was 8% of the project. So if it's a $10 million project, you know, it'll be 8% of that. And for the floor, I think it was a flat fee, right? Wasn't it like $47,000 or $50,000, something like that to do?
Yeah.
Because we've already paid them to design the floor. So if we go with the floor and the archway, we're only paying for the additional design of the archway. We signed a contract with them a year ago to design the floor, and then we kind of changed it. We changed it from just doing the floor to opening up the archway to possibly putting a truck in there. So,
Square it off.
yeah, to square off the archway, but the archway is structural, so it supports all those bricks that go up to the roof line, so the whole front wall would have to come down. They'd have to put up temporary supports for the second floor joist, so it's not a small project. And then once we did the archway and the floor, the roof needs to be done. The windows are from 1947, and there's no storm windows. There's plumbing issues in that house, you know, so, you know, figure out what the archway and the floor is, and then add another substantial amount for the other upgrades that the building is gonna need. So, and anything we do would most likely be bonded. It would be the board's decision, but we don't have that kind of money. So that would mean a public referendum. So, you know, the public would have to approve whatever choice we went with, you know, to bond. If we were gonna bond, that would be a public referendum item.
okay.
So,
Can we,
so we could postpone it till next month, but the board should kind of try to come to a consensus on how you want to move forward. Because that floor does get inspected, and the inspectors have told us that it's not going to be in service much longer. Eventually, they're going to say the floor is unsafe and that firehouse is closed. So it was a temporary fix 15 years ago.
I think if it's possible, if we can get an estimate on what we just discussed, and another estimate on what would it cost to build brand new.
But again, the engineers are saying they're not going to provide that estimate until you hire them. They're not going to do the time and the work to get you that estimate unless you're their client.
Okay.
They don't give that for free because they're not the builders. If you
Right,
ask
right.
builders to come around and give you an estimate, a lot of times they don't charge you. But the architect and engineers are actually going to hire consultants to come up with an accurate estimate.
Okay.
Because if you wait 6 months from now, the cost could go up 10%, you know, so until they're hired, they're not going to give you an estimate other than a guess.
do you have paperwork from them to move forward on either option?
I think the board really needs to, you know, have a discussion at a meeting in public. That would be a public, you know, thing, maybe when all 5 members of the board are here, to really discuss the way you want to move forward.
Then let's do it next month.
Yeah, that's fine. So maybe the board could read the proposal in the meantime and, you know, maybe have a discussion on it for next month,
Yeah, we'll
put it
discuss
on the
next month.
agenda.
I mean, if it's urgent, we're gonna have a special meeting, but we'll discuss it.
No, yeah, I mean, the engineers only come every 6 months, so I don't think they're due for a couple months, so.
All right, so let's-
But yeah, but they did say this temporary fix is not gonna suffice much longer, you know, it needs to be addressed.
We'll have an answer for you on the 12th.
Okay.
All right. Okay, public comments, please. Public comments, yeah, anybody from the public?
A lot of people with a lot. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Zuckerman. I live at 24 Bronx Street, Tuckahoe, part of the town of Eastchester. I have a bunch to say tonight, and this gentleman said he also has a bunch to say, so that's good. I want to announce up front that I think everything I say tonight is true, to the best of my knowledge. And I also want to say, because I'm not only addressing the board, I'm hoping that maybe somebody out there in Eastchester land will actually tune this in, either tonight or some other time, and listen to what I have to say. It will come as a big shock to many people. And I want to announce right now that nothing I speak to has any chance of changing. This is where we are. I shouldn't say that. At the end of my little talk, I will announce the only conceivable way that anything can change from this juggernaut that is the Eastchester Fire Department. And despite the fact that Commissioner Carlo voted against this 14.4% budget, Commissioner Carlo, you were definitely one of the architects of this juggernaut. And a juggernaut is defined as like an inexorable force that just can't be stopped. And that's what we have with the Eastchester Fire Department budget, okay? In the last 3 years, it's about 30%. 30%, if you take this next year, this current year, and 2 years ago, about a 30% increase in the last 3 years. I took a good look at my school taxes, my village of Tuckahoe taxes, the taxes in Bronxville town and school, the county, anything we get from the county taxes. It took 10 years to go up 30% on all of those items. School, village, town of Eastchester from Tony Calavita, county. 10 years. Here we did it in 3 years. This juggernaut, for those listening, cannot be stopped. There is no way. We're in it. It's going to get bigger and bigger. We're at double digits, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. For those who don't know, there's 3 people sitting up here, could be 5, and they make that decision. This 14.4% budget that we're going to have next year, increase in the budget, it could be 50%. If these people say it's going to be a 50% increase, it'll be a 50% increase. If they say they want to double the budget from 23 million to 46 million, it'd be doubled. We have nothing to say about that. All of you here in Eastchester, you have nothing to say about the fact that this budget could double anytime these people up here say, let's double the budget. Nothing to say about it. Does anyone here or in the world believe? I was a teacher for 30 years in Bronxville. We went 3 years, 3 years in a row, not that long ago, with 0 raises for the teachers, okay? 3 years in a row. Does anybody think that the Board of Ed in Bronxville, where I taught, would not like to have a 14.4% budget? Do you think they wouldn't know what to do with the money? We would have had more teachers. We would have had extra classes for kids. We would have had tutoring for them. We would have had all sorts of programs in the summer for kids. But we had a 3% tax cap. Couldn't have 14.4% budgets. I retired 16 years ago in Bronxville. There are right now in Bronxville, 16 years later, the exact same number of teachers as when I retired. That's the truth. 14.4% budget. They would be frothing at the mouth. Let's go to the police departments. Do you think any of the police departments would not love a 14.4% increase in their police departments in Eastchester, Tuckahoe, or Bronxville? They would be doing backflips. They'd hire more police officers. They'd have more cars. They would do more training. They would send people out to find out what other communities are doing. You can't do that with 3%. But you guys have a cash machine. You say whatever you want and you get it. 14.4%. Let's just do it. Next year could be 18%. Now you're going to maybe pass a referendum to raise more money to do things. It is an unbelievable situation that most people in New York State don't understand, that certain fire districts have the ability to just raise as much money as they want with absolutely zero restrictions. DPW, oh my God. I hear from our DPW department in Tuckahoe every time I'm out on the street. What are we going to do? We need some more money. We need new trucks. We need this. Give them a 14.4% increase. Give them 30% in the last 3 years. They'd have everything they want. Can't have it. This is the only place that can have it. Nowhere else in our life does somebody get to write a blank check like you guys do. I just want the people watching this to know that that's how it works with the Eastchester Fire Department, as opposed to the county, the villages, the schools, police departments, and DPW. They have tax caps, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to their citizens not to do that. Plus, they could never get it passed. They have to put this up. School budgets get put up. If you break the tax cap, then you got to get 60% of the community to vote for it. That happens virtually never in the state of New York, of the 700 school districts in New York. People trying to break the tax cap and got to get a 60% vote for it, not 50%, happens maybe once a year around the state of New York for any district that even tries to do it. I won't go on too much longer. I just want to address the overtime situation for a second. If we take the overtime number, I don't know, let's just throw out a number like $1 million, although it's going to be more than $1 million this year. $1 million in overtime. And we divide it by the number of people who work for the fire department. That comes to $15,000, $20,000 a person. It's at least $15,000, probably $20,000 per firefighter. So when a new firefighter comes on, and this I'm addressing to the chief, who seems to be, now Commissioner Carl sort of said something at the last meeting that makes me think he might be the second person in all of America who doesn't know that when you have more firefighters, you have more overtime. You see, because when you become a firefighter, here or probably a lot of places, you're told, oh yeah, here's your salary schedule, you get here after 6 years, you'll get the maximum, whatever. But don't forget, you're going to have $15,000, $20,000 a year in overtime. That's guaranteed. And any new person coming into the department is told that by his union president or whatever. Relax, don't worry. We all get $15,000, $20,000 a year in overtime. Some guys get more, some guys might get less. But you got that. So just add that to what your salary is. How the chief doesn't know that, how he thinks we hire more guys and more guys and more guys, and the overtime is somehow going to go down, is beyond me. I'm at this for the last 5 years with you, chief. And every year you're wrong. Every single year. I don't know if you're just not telling the truth or you really don't know it. And as a matter of fact, at the last meeting, Commissioner Carlos said, boy, I'm a little surprised. That's what he said, I'm a little surprised. We are going to add 5 guys, but we're budgeting for more overtime. That's what you said. So now we have 2 people who actually don't seem to catch on. I don't know. How many years do we have to go through this? I'll be here next year. I will do the same thing with the new 5 guys, and you'll see the budget for overtime is higher than it was this year. Okay. The overtime thing is wild. I was a teacher for 30 years, and I never got $1 in overtime. There's no such thing in the state of New York for a teacher to get overtime. There's no such thing. Whether we have a parent that calls up and says, gee, Jeff, I can't meet you. I can't come during the day for a parent-teacher conference. Could you meet me at 6:30, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning before I get on the train? Of course I go. That's not overtime. The fact that I would mark grade papers all weekend long and put in grades, maybe while watching the Giant game or something, all weekend, that's not overtime. There's no such thing as overtime. That term doesn't exist. I mean, you might be a football coach, That's not overtime. That's a separate job you do after school. There's no such thing as overtime. Any school in the state of New York, it doesn't exist. I just want to go over one. Chief, did I read correctly that you are now, in this new arrangement, you're going to be eligible for overtime?
So for certain things like professional development time, to take chief level courses, say like Fire Officer 3 or something like that. If it's not during my normal working hours, the board has agreed to pay us, myself and the assistant chief, straight time pay to take those type of classes, right? So it's up to 60 hours of professional development time for, chief level courses.
Okay.
Also, if we're called out for things like mutual aid or something like that, out of office hours, that would be time and a half. But, we go mutual aid once or twice a month for a couple hours, so, we don't anticipate that to be a great number.
Okay. All right. I'll let that one go. I'm going to just let that go. School superintendents, chief officers don't make this kind of stuff. School superintendents in Eastchester, Tuckahoe, Bronx, they don't make overtime for going to a conference or something. It's just not done. But let it go. All right, I want to go to the medical calls for a second. Okay? For those who don't know, in Scarsdale, their firemen do not go out on medical calls unless they're called. Unless they're called by their Scarsdale Volunteer Ambulance Corps or the police. They do not routinely go out, and they never have. Because I know guys that were there 45, 50 years ago, and I know guys today. They have to wait till they get a call from the SVAC or the police saying, guys, we got a horrible car accident here, we need you. Car's on fire, we need you. For your basic medical call, somebody had a heart attack, somebody had his toes chopped off by a lawnmower, you don't go out on those calls. I'm going to tell you an absolute true story. And if this isn't true, may my children and my grandchildren be struck by lightning by the time I get home. My wife's sister fell out of bed. Old. Definitely had broken her hip. She called us. I'm sure I broke my hip. I can't move. I can't move. Just get me an ambulance. She's completely sitting. We got her into a chair, completely sitting up. I said, I'm barely in pain. I'm sure it's broken. Can we get me to the hospital and get an x-ray at Lawrence? This is a while ago. Still called it Lawrence. Please, just get me there. Well, I can't put you in my car. We got to put you in a wheelchair. We got to get you into an ambulance to get you there. I called our police department. I know everybody at our police department. I said to the sergeant on duty, I said, listen, we need an ambulance to take my sister-in-law to Lawrence. Pretty sure she has a broken hip. Just need her to be put in the wheelchair, put her in the into the ambulance, and just take her down. And she is begging. She is begging, it's nighttime, that the whole street is not bothered by fire engines. That's all we ask. Send your police cars, send the Eastchester evac. Send it over. That's all we beg you. We beg you. The sergeant said, Jeff, you know how this works. You know how this works. You know they're coming. No matter what I tell them, they're going to be there. So that when their meetings occur, and we went on 800 calls, we went on 8,000 calls this year. Not only did we get one, we got 2 fire trucks. 2. Thank God the sirens weren't going. But the lights were on this little street in Tuckahoe. 2 fire trucks after begging and begging and begging. She's awake. She's fine. We just need to put her in the ambulance. 2 fire trucks. Then she died. A few years after that, she died. My wife walked in, found her dead. We've seen other dead bodies. She was very sick in her apartment. Cold, pasty, dead. So we called the police. Police came over. Police came over, said, looks pretty dead. Looks pretty dead. We got to get the medical examiner here. Told the police, listen, we need the fire engines here. She's dead. We just need the medical examiner. You guys showed up. We didn't need you.
Jeff, there's no need
But
to yell. There's no need to yell. You could talk as like a gentleman. There's no need to yell. We're all here. We hear you.
I'm so upset.
All right,
Okay.
well, calm down.
Okay, Anthony, I'm sorry.
All right.
I apologize.
You don't have to
Okay,
apologize.
I apologize. I play golf at Lake Isle every weekend. Every weekend from April till now. Sometimes I have guests there. We're playing golf. We're putting. We're doing. The fire engines are going and going. People not from this town say to me, Jeff, how many fires are in this village, in this town? How many? Because we can't ever play around the golf without fire engines in that 4-hour, 5-hour period. Right there in Lake Isle, we hear them all over. I said, we have virtually no fires. We have virtually no fires. That's been stated by you guys, by the union. In fact, one time he said, we have no fires. That's what he said, the union president before this. And one night, he said, no fires. Okay. Very, very few fires. Very few fires. And that's what I told the guys that are putting. I said, thank God, this is a town with almost no fires. They said, so what is it? I said, well, we go out on every call. Every single medical call, whether it's urgent or not. They don't wait to get called like the Scarsdale Fire Department gets. Wait to get called when they need more manpower and the jaws of life or whatever it is that you guys can offer that the ambulance cannot offer. All right, I'm done. Oh no, I said I was going to give you the way. Here's the way that things can change. Because nothing I said, anyone listening at home, nothing I said can change. They'll keep going on to medical calls. We'll keep showing up, whether they need it or not. We will keep writing blank checks for whatever is needed. 14.4% is the tip of the iceberg. All of that. And none of us have any say in this. So, how could it possibly change? I have an answer. Here's my answer. And now I'm throwing down the gauntlet to Tony Calavita in conjunction with Mayor Andino and in conjunction with Mary Marvin, the mayor of Bronxville. The next person up, next year, Paul Ranalone. It's my test. Yeah, more like throwing down the gauntlet. I want to know if those people are going to get together, put up a candidate, put their thumb on the scale in an election, and Paul, say thank you for your service. That would be year one. Then in year two...
Can I say something?
No, don't interrupt.
Okay.
I won't interrupt you when you speak, okay? Then 2 years from now, Commissioner Laurie, those three people get together again, put up a candidate that they will all support, and if all three of them support that candidate, then there's no hope. I don't care how many fire people you know, how many friends and families you know, you will not get elected if they want to put somebody on this board to change the culture of 30% in 3 years, and I think it's going to be higher in the next 3 years. So, and then they would have to do it a third year in a row. 3 years in a row, they would have to get people, I guess that Commissioner Sarasi, I don't know who that would be. 3 years in a row, get three people up there who are going to change the culture and not have 14.4% budgets. But other than that, and really the chances of this happening, and it would work. It'll take 3 years and it will work. But the chances of it happening are slim and none. And, I think Slim just left. So, not going to happen. But that's the only way. There is no other way to interject in this juggernaut any kind of cost saving for the citizens of the entire town of Eastchester. There is no way. You are not fiduciaries. You are just friends of the firefighters. That's what you are. You're friends of the firefighters. And you're not fiduciaries. Not at all. You're not watching out for all the citizens of East. You'll tell them, oh, we're watching out. We had to hire more people and more people. Oh, the fire 500 years ago on Garth Road. Oh, my God, if we had only had 50 more men, oh, my God. We've heard it. We've heard it for so many years.
We've heard you too, Jeff.
Oh, no.
We've heard you too.
Okay. Thank you for listening.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Could I respond to a couple of points for the
Sure,
operations that he
absolutely.
made?
Absolutely.
So there really wouldn't be a lot of savings if we didn't go on those medical calls. You're going to save a few $1,000s in diesel fuel and gasoline for the rigs not going. You're still paying the members to go. The reason that we respond is because EVAC has one building in the middle of town. It takes them 7 minutes to get to Garth Road, and if it's Christmas shopping season, it takes them 15 minutes to get to Garth Road. Down in Chester Heights, we have a firehouse on Oregon Avenue. We can respond to Chester Heights within 2 minutes. It's going to take EVAC when the school is getting out. It's going to take them probably 10 or 12 minutes. When you're having a heart attack, minutes mean life. Strokes, minutes mean life. So the service that we do is called a tiered response. The police department responds. Some of them are first responders. Some of them are EMTs. All our members are EMTs, or they're currently in the EMT class. So you have the police department, the fire department, and EVAC. And I don't know if you've noticed, but sometimes EVAC gets 3 calls at once, and they're calling for an ambulance from Pelham or an ambulance from Scarsdale. And then that's like a 20-minute wait. So do you want your family member that may not be breathing or maybe in cardiac arrest to have to wait 20 minutes for that ambulance to get to the house? This was set up many years ago, probably 20 or 30 years ago this way, and it was decided between the town and the villages, and they supported EVAC and the fire department, and that's how that system was done. It's called a tiered response system, police, fire, ambulance. If we're not needed, we'll turn around. If the paramedic gets there first and says, hey, Captain, we got this, we don't need you guys, we turn off the lights, turn around, and go back to the firehouse. So we don't go on every single call. And there's a protocol on what the dispatchers send us to. So if it's like a sprained ankle or a stubbed toe or something like that, that's not in the protocol for us to even be dispatched. But if it's a serious medical condition, a broken hip, you can have tremendous amount of blood loss. So you may say, oh, she's comfortable, she's sitting in the chair, but she could be bleeding out while she's sitting in that chair smiling. You don't know until you get to the hospital and get an x-ray. Our guys have oxygen, they can maybe splint if there's a broken bone. So that's all I'll say about why we go on EMS calls, all right? And we get commendations every year for saving lives with EVAC and the police departments, so it seems to work pretty well. We get 4 cardiac arrest saves every year that the guys are being awarded commendations for. So that's what I'll say about that. And, we go on 4,000 calls a year. So what if you cut it down to 2,000 calls a year? It doesn't mean that we need half the people, because we still have to protect New York Presbyterian Lawrence Hospital. We have to protect 2 10-story buildings in Tuckahoe. We have to protect like 25 6- and 7-story buildings on Garth Road. You have to staff your fire department for what you need to protect. You can't rely on mutual aid for your everyday calls. If we get an apartment fire on Garth Road, we have enough people to get a fire attack started, and then we'll call for mutual aid if it's needed. The reason you don't hear about a lot of fires is because it might be a bedroom fire, our guys get in there quick and they put it out. So it's like you have one window boarded up, but the people may still be able to live in the house. So we get there quick, and we help keep fires small. Now some, we've had fatal fires while I've been chief. We had one on Main Street. There was no working smoke alarms in the apartment. So unfortunately, once the smoke got out into the hallway, it notified the alarm company, and they called us, and also the bartender across the street saw smoke and called, but he couldn't go into the apartment that was on fire. So unfortunately, that resident was not able to be saved because the smoke got to him, because unfortunately there was no working smoke detectors. So by having the 5 firehouses and the amount of people that we have, we can make a difference. I know you think if you cut the calls, oh, well, we can use half the people, but it doesn't work like that. So the other thing I'll say about the budgets, all those other governments you mentioned probably have debt service. If the town buys a garbage truck, they do it on a 10 or 20-year bond. We just bought 5 fire trucks and we paid cash. So yes, the budgets went up. We're in the process. We put $500,000 towards a fire truck we're getting delivered next year. So, you know, if you want us to bond everything, we can do that and we'll keep the budget down. But now you have the debt service. It's going to be paid off over 20 or 25 years. So, you know, Eastchester High School, I think, had a bond for like $50 million or $70 million. Imagine if they had to pay cash for that. Well, that would have been like a 1,000% increase in the budget. So yes, we could bond things, and maybe that would be a better way to do it because the truck's useful life is 15 years. So maybe it's better to bond it. But this fire department, I think, has, you know, prided itself on saving up. If we need a fire truck, we save up or put money in the budget every 2 or 3 years. You know, a fire pumper is $1 million. A ladder truck is $2 million. So we paid for a ladder truck. Amy Paulin gave us a $500,000 SAM grant, and the department paid the other $500,000 for one of the ladder trucks. So the tower ladder we just got was $2 million, and we paid cash, or 1.85. Excuse me. So we don't bond. A lot of those other governments that you talked about do bonding, and that's how I believe they're partially able to keep their budgets down. So maybe Bronxville doesn't bond, I'm not sure. But I would think Tuckahoe and Eastchester, I know Eastchester does for police cars and for garbage trucks. So yes, if they paid cash for their garbage trucks or police cars, their budgets would go up as well.
Since you addressed most of that to me, I just want to rebut one thing you said. So if they bond, then there's a debt service.
Yeah, that's what I said.
A debt service is part of their bill to all the residents, and that's 3%.
Right.
It's within the increase. So all the bonding that you're talking about, it's called a debt service. That's part of what is in every budget. And somehow, with all that bonding and all that debt service, they're still able to have 3% budgets, 4% budgets.
No, I'm saying that's why they have 3 or 4% budgets, because they're paying it off over 20 years.
So what? But they still have 3-4% budgets. You're doing whatever you're doing with 14% budgets. Theirs is 3%, 4%.
Okay. I mean, you know.
So the county, the towns, the villages, the schools, everybody doing it wrong except the Eastchester Fire Department. So as I said, nothing will ever change because you actually think that what you just said is an answer, and that George Latimer ought to hear about it, and Tony Calavita ought to hear about it, because they should just do 14% budgets, and then they'll have money to do things in the schools and whatever. But that's not the way it works. People borrow, and then they have a little bit each year so that they can keep their budgets down to everybody for 3-4% without 14% increases.
I just want to say one thing, the 14% that you're worrying about, 14.4%, 8.5% of that was between pension and healthcare costs we had no control over. So that's 8.5% we had no control over. That was going to happen no matter what. We went to 14.5% because we wanted to hire one more man each tour for one of our trucks. We want to get to 3 manning on trucks for safety of the residents and for safety of our firemen. We're not spending 14% and just hand it over to firemen as an increase in their salary. They're not living large because we gave them 14%. We've got expenses we have to deal with, and that's where the 14.4 came from. We're not just blowing out 14% so we can piss off the residents if we have nothing better to do. So I don't know what you think we're doing over here.
I never once said that the 14.4% budget just went to the men. I never said that.
Well, it may seem as if, like,
Teachers,
you know, everybody's
teachers,
getting his money.
DPW, and police have the same issues
Okay, well,
with their
we have-
pension and health costs
Oh,
that you do.
Okay, well, and we had that this year, right? We didn't have it last year, we had it this year. There's a big spike in retirement costs and healthcare insurance. And that alone was 8.5% of the budget. The other 5.5% was, we want to bring on more men for next year onto one of our rigs in Scarsdale to protect the people and protect property. That's it. We're not trying to waste money. And we do have a fiduciary responsibility, and we're not blowing the budget out of the water, but it was high this year, it was high last year. None of us liked it, but we felt that it was necessary, and we had to do it. Maybe next year it'll be lower. Hopefully it will be. I don't know yet.
I doubt it.
But you think
But
we're just...
I just want to let you know that you started this by talking about costs you have.
Yeah.
That the pension and the health and stuff. Yeah, so do the teachers, so does every Board of
Okay, well,
Education, so does
right.
every police department, and so does every DPW department,
Okay.
have the same costs that you said. and they keep it down at 3-4%.
Well, we had a spike. You want, maybe when Jamie's here next month, you can come back and ask Jamie, why the spike? Kenny?
Good evening, Commissioners. Ken Simonides, 144 Anderson Avenue. I'm here on two parts now because of the rant that just happened. As a 25-and-a-half-year career member, just recently retired, I was blessed to be up on the north end of Eastchester on Engine 31. And Mr. Zuckerman, I take offense to the fact that you're insinuating that the firefighters don't need to be out there doing EMS runs. I can recall several calls that I was on that during the time that I was dispatched to a call, there were 3 other calls going on simultaneously. The call that I was dispatched to was for a child having an anaphylaxis episode. He was about to die. And if I wasn't there, he would have died. Now, for you to stand up here, and I understand your concern about the 14.4% increase in the tax and all that other stuff, but how dare you criticize the firefighters of this fire district? Because they're all trained, and you don't have any idea the emotional trauma that we go through when we respond to these calls. We go back to the firehouse. I had a friend of mine whose wife passed away at 40. I was over there, and I can hear her ribs cracking as I was doing CPR, trying to revive her. And my friend came back from his job, and I've known this gentleman for a long period of time. That took an emotional toll on me. I went back to the firehouse, and I said, what could I have done to help this individual survive? So we second-guess ourselves. And then you wonder why you hear about police officers, firefighters, military people, they commit suicide because we're human beings, and we don't deserve to be ridiculed and mocked by somebody that has some type of an agenda to grind with the Board of Fire Commissioners. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Also, Commissioner Carlo, the point, the fire district doesn't get any money from the sales tax, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The other entities do. They get a portion of the sales tax. Now, everybody that comes to shop in the town of Eastchester, the village of Bronxville, the village of Tuckahoe, they generate that sales tax revenue. So that helps to offset the budgets of these other entities. The fire district does not. That said, I'm also here to announce that I am one of the candidates that is running for the Board of Fire Commissioners election December 10th.
I saw your sign.
And I want to wish everybody that is also running good luck, and we will get this together. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny.
Good evening, gentlemen. Ray Rooney, Channing Place, Eastchester, member of the Eastchester Volunteer Fire Department since 1975. Retired from New York City Police Department for 38 years. A lot of passion going on in the room tonight, and I'll try to keep it more businesslike if I can. First of all, there's a lot of things that are going on in regard to the discussion in regard to the taxes. And I did my homework also. I'm a numbers guy. I'm going to go back 5 years. In 5 years, town of Eastchester, the board has raised taxes almost 35%, going back to 2021. Okay, per plot, per piece of land, that's $650 or whatever. It doesn't sound like a lot, but then when you add up how much money it's changed, that 35% difference, you know, what has it bought us? That's the more important, what has it bought us? Because the 5 elected officials and Chief Tween over here and his assistant, you know, the 7 of you are literally running the fire department for the best of the residents of the town of Eastchester. But as the first gentleman said, the board doesn't seem to like measure what that dollar gets us. Now, I know there's been, for the last several years, we're looking to increase the staffing of the fire department. And as the gentleman indicated, we have a lot of firemen showing up at various times. And as the newly retired, and congratulations, and person running now for the board, you know, that question of what's the vital responses that we do. Now, I spent time trying to figure out some answers from what should be provided as public knowledge. And I'll start with our website. Now, discussion was made by the secretary that there's going to be work on the website, okay, hopefully in the coming year. And I don't know whose responsibility it is. I don't know whether it's Chief Tweens. I don't know whether it's the assistants. I don't know whether it's the administrative staff. I couldn't tell you whether any one of the 5 commissioners have any knowledge of it, what works on it and what doesn't. But what I can tell you, it's embarrassing that when you're up to a budget of $23 million now, and you have a website that goes back to 2022 on the main page, and then when you get into the page for the chief's page hasn't been updated since 2022. The treasurer's report literally has one report this year in April, the treasurer's report. Now, we have 3 people running for an office over here to become a commissioner, and not any of those 3 people have any accurate numbers. I don't have any accurate numbers. The people that are going to vote in December don't have accurate numbers. So when, as that passionate plea says everything's going to remain the same, he's probably right. It's going to remain the same because there's no information. You know, as Commissioner Carlo indicated or whatever, we're spending 8% now this year in regard to pension benefits and regular benefits, okay? Our pension benefits went up. Why? We had a lot of guys retire last year. But all those guys that retired last year, they didn't retire with small pensions. They retired with large pensions. And why? Because they made overtime. Now, the firemen in this town work real hard, and there's no issue against the firemen. The issue is against the 2 administrative leaders and the 5 of you that are elected. Because if you can't explain why we have so much overtime, okay, and we don't have fires, are we backfilling? You know, if I ask the question, what's our minimum manning level, I guarantee not a single person up there could tell me what the minimum manning level is, correct?
I could tell you.
Please tell me, Chief.
All right, right now, it's currently 1 captain, 2 lieutenants, and 12 firefighters per shift every day, 24 hours a day minimum. If there's, like January and February, there's no vacations, there will be additional firefighters who cover vacations. So when there's no vacations, those guys will be a 2nd or 3rd member on an apparatus. It'll be a 3rd member of an apparatus.
Well, you brought something up, vacations.
Yes.
As you said, no one takes vacation in January or February.
No, not no one. You do have some skiers, so there are some vacations,
okay,
but the majority of the vacations are in May, June, July, August.
There you go. You consolidate it down to 4 months. Almost every employer I know works on a 12-month calendar, but we only work on a 4-month calendar.
No, that's not true.
If someone went and audited overtime, they would find the highest concentration in May, June, July, and August of overtime.
Probably.
Okay, so and the reason that occurs is because people are on vacation. And if people are on vacation, then there has to be a reason why do we have so many during those 4 months and no one's taken in on it. But that's a whole scheduling thing that the administrative staff should be able to figure out so that somebody has to be the lowest man on the totem pole. That works in every employment aspect, any place you go, whether it's civil service, private industry, somebody's low man. You don't get a better vacation pick till you move up the ladder. But it doesn't apply here.
That's not true. 100% not true.
Okay.
Yeah, the vacation picks are pretty much throughout the year, except, you know, a couple, like I said, there may be a couple openings in January and February. The members also have personal days. They get 2 float days or personal days. So there's also coverage for that. So that's, you know, you can have 2 people on vacation and 1 person one firefighter on a personal day on any given day. Okay.
We talked about in regard to duties and responsibilities, the commissioners, whatever. We talked about, in the beginning part of the meeting, we were talking about Bronxville Firehouse, station number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been going on now for year and a half?
Well, we had to finish Chester Heights before we could consider
I'm not even
closing
touching that
the
albatross.
second one.
I'm not
So
even touching that
that's why
albatross.
the
Because
Bronxville one's been delayed.
okay, so when we talk about Bronxville, okay, and we've already paid an engineer to give us an assessment of the apparatus floor. We have an approximate cost of what it's going to cost. Now we have some new wishes on the totem pole to now open the front of the firehouse. Now we have a couple of commissioners now that are looking now to replace the firehouse totally, okay? At some point, when do we actually make decisions to get something done? You brought up Chester Heights. We're still paying bills on Chester Heights. We're still trying to get it finished. Finished. And this is what, 6 years into it?
What are we getting finished in Chester Heights?
You just mentioned we're still working on Chester Heights.
No, I said we couldn't close 2 firehouses at the same time. So we had to complete Chester Heights before we could even consider moving forward on Bronxville. Now, the plans for the Bronxville floor was done 6 months ago, but then the board considered a change. So, you know, as soon as Chester Heights was done, we could have moved and closed Bronxville and started to replace that floor.
Okay.
But then the board decided possibly opening up the archway to square it off like every other firehouse has.
What was the reason we couldn't do it at the same time? Because we couldn't have 2 different contractors doing it?
No, because where would we put the fire trucks? They'd be parked outside in the winter. Chester Heights was closed for 3 years.
And
we
outside, but why couldn't you do it though? What do you
Why
mean
didn't we replace both floors at the same time?
Yeah.
Because we had no place to put the apparatus. They would be destroyed parking a pumper with 500 gallons of water outside when it's 10 degrees.
But that apparatus that was in Chester Heights was outside for all.
Brought it up to headquarters. During the summer months, we used the library at the Marble Schoolhouse. But
Okay.
anytime the temperature was approaching 38, 37 degrees, we brought it up to headquarters and parked it indoors. So as much as we could, we kept a presence down in Chester Heights by parking the fire truck outside in the parking lot of the Marble Schoolhouse. But again, it's like in Bronxville, there's nowhere to put it because the members were sleeping and, you know, standing by in the library of the Marble Schoolhouse. The Historical Society has a library that has a bathroom.
No, I'm familiar with what was going on.
Right, so the members were able to stay there and park the fire truck outside. Bronxville, there's nowhere to put them. There's nothing nearby that we could rent in Bronxville. There's no vacant warehouses that we could park a fire truck and have the guys have, you know, sleeping quarters and, you know,
Okay, so then let me ask you the question now.
yes.
How do you address it going forward?
They're gonna come up to headquarters and the fire truck will run out of fire headquarters until the firehouse is opened again. Or Tuckahoe, but we have the old ladder truck there, so for right now, that's not an option. But
Okay.
most likely, they're gonna run out of headquarters.
Okay.
And then any calls in Bronxville, they go right down Midland Avenue, Main Street to Midland Avenue.
Okay, just going over the rest of the computer, your chief's report, why isn't that on the computer?
Can I
Do you
answer about
post
the
them?
website? So are you referring to the archive section, or do you review the
Oh, the
document
regular
section?
website, like right now, I
Sure.
printed everything up tonight.
Yes, and so just to clarify too, there are 3 to 4 different positions that a document could exist on our website. So it is posted, and, you know, apologies for any confusion, on our minutes for each meeting. So you could, for example, go to the documents section, and the
Okay.
chief's reports will be included in there. For the archive section, that's something that I could, of course, update on a monthly basis, but that's also something that when I do records retention, I try to upload everything at once for each year. So that's not a perfect system. Of course, if it could be monthly on the archive section, I could do that if that's a request. But that has been something I don't
The
frequent.
archive section goes back to, the last report you had was April this year. You have one report that showed up in the archive section. the
Sure,
chief's
the-
report.
Do you see?
Then going back to 23, you only have 5 reports in there. The last time it actually functioned was in 2022. So
Sure.
the community that goes to try to find the report of what the chief does, they can't find it.
I understand, and that's very helpful feedback because of how one experiences the website. Hopefully, for at least the main part that I try to get the documents on is under the documents section. For each board meeting, anything relevant to a meeting is in that section. So if you go to the About Us and go to the Documents page, that's typically where things are uploaded with the more recent updates. And then in our archive section, you know, if that's something that you're browsing and you'd like to see it there faster, of
Well,
course, I
I'm
could
just
upload it
I'm just
there.
following your website that you have.
Sure.
You have your hot points, I'll say, and you go to that hot point, and it's giving, cheap messages or whatever, and it's not showing up there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
and
you're
thank you
telling me
for,
it's hidden in the full document section, but
Yeah.
the average person who's just going on your website is not going to find the info. is what-
definitely not the, idea to go and have it hidden. Hopefully, it's something that's
Okay.
able to be accessible under the board meetings.
Okay.
But of course, once again, thank you for that feedback, because that's also something I myself, as this website still is only 2 years old, I myself am trying to navigate it. I'm the website manager, so that's part of it where I'd like to get feedback from the community, how they want to experience it.
Okay.
And this is helpful for me,
And
because if you want to see that
Are you
uploaded
also
more.
responsible for the financial secretary's section of the website?
The fiscal information's uploaded, yes, underneath the fiscal tab.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
the last time something was entered was back in June of this year. So again, we just went, and the whole discussion on the first presenter was on this extravagant budget of 14-something%. And if someone wanted to drill down on that budget, yeah, they went into the proposed budget and finalized budget, but the worksheet part of the budget, there's nothing there. And then, like, right now, one of the questions that came up was about overtime. Now, not taking anything away from the men work when the chief tells them to work, okay? So that's not the issue. The issue is, if some citizen wants to know right now, are we over budget on overtime spent this year? Nobody has that.
Sure. I want to definitely make your experience easier. My understanding is on the fiscal information section, that still links to the archive section. So hopefully, when you go to the board meetings, you could see the worksheets are provided in the minutes for what she had provided us each meeting. So that's our main point, the thing that we update usually every meeting. But that is something I'll take into consideration too, to update it and try to make the archive section stand out more. But again, also, if you could contact me if there's something specific
Absolutely.
you're looking for, I will gladly provide it to you.
Thank you so
But
much.
thank you for that feedback.
Couple other questions. Discussion was made in regard to response time or multiple units showing up on a response or not responding. I have a different story than what the first gentleman said. Back in September, one of my neighbors' wife called me up and said her husband wants to go to the hospital, and should I call 911? I said absolutely. I said, is he having difficulty breathing? No, but he just doesn't feel right. I said, okay, fine. I was at the corner of Winter Hill Road and White Plains Road. I immediately turned around and went back home. He's my next door neighbor. I live in Channing Place. I got there before the first car showed up. The first car to show up was the Eastchester Police Department, a sergeant. Second vehicle to show up was the evac, was the paramedic assigned to evac. Third car to show up was the actual transportation, the ambulance. The rig, engine 31, coming out of North End, showed up 8 minutes after I got home. So when we say that, we could have multiple things going on, I don't know how a rig from literally Wilmot Road coming down to Channing Place took 8 minutes to get there. Now, I was told by another member of the service that if the person calls on a cell phone, it winds up getting doubly dispatched. It has to come from New York State Police down over to the dispatch for the fire department. It's a double dispatch. But in essence, you're talking literally, let's say, a minute on the transfer on the dispatch. How this person showed up 8 minutes after I got home, and I came from Tuckahoe and got there, and that rig showed up, let's say, technically speaking, 10 minutes after the phone call was made, 11 minutes, it was unconscionable. Thank God he didn't need it, okay? He did not need the response. He was just needed transportation over to the hospital or whatever. But the question goes back and forth as multiple people showing up on the same calls. Now, as the retired fireman just said, he's been there. I've been there also. And I'm not saying I have the perfect answer, but I think in the tiered system, somebody has to, at dispatch, make that decision. Who are we sending? And if they're sending the ambulance, and the ambulance acknowledges I'm going now, that fire truck shouldn't be going.
But again, ambulance is coming from Main Street and Tuckahoe Avenue.
Right.
And what if it's up on Garth Road, or what if it's in Chester Heights? Again, the dispatcher doesn't know, and I can't speak to your specific call that you're referencing, because I don't know that they weren't responding from another call that they just got released from. I don't know that they
But-
were in quarters.
And Chief, I will,
You know?
I will even give you
Or
a
they could have been
little
a
bit of leeway
training.
on that. But if they were coming from another call or training, as you're indicating, then somebody at dispatch should be a little bit able to say, hey, listen, if they're on another call, they're not available. And if they're at training, they're not available, and some other rig should be showing up, then if you're gonna go with that, okay? And that's all I ask, is that when we do measurements, we have accurate measurements, okay? I look at your reports, and I don't get accurate measurements. And we have the skills, we have the computers, we have radio codes, we have times it was dispatched and was time that we arrive on the scene and what the call was for. We need to expand those things so that when those 5 people that are sitting to your left need to make honest decisions about budgets, about manpower, about staffing, they actually have honest answers, okay? Because looking at what is produced in this archive or what is given, whether by you, by the treasurer, by the secretary, the citizens out here cannot figure out the correct answer. So if, as that first gentleman said, going into 2025, you want to make a better product, a better sales pitch, get better numbers. Because the numbers that you're sold the community don't justify what they're paying for. They just don't, okay? You know, we get our last 3 rigs, and you articulated this, Chief. You know, we paid for 50% and we got a grant on the other side. So we're saving that amount of money. Our money, my fear now going forward is, because we're expanding the fire department, again, for ambulance runs, okay? If you want to do that, then why don't you do like every other fire department does across the country, bring the ambulance into the fire department, then we won't be sending out these $1 million rigs on literally the stub toe or I fell out of bed, we'll send the ambulance out, okay? You want to save money, take over evac, bring them in on our side of the fence or whatever, and you won't need to send a ladder truck from this side of town to that side of town, and hopefully they're not running a risk of having that accident on a call they didn't need to get there in the first place. Send the people that should be doing the ambulance runs on the ambulance runs.
I mean, this model is used in many other departments. Jeff mentioned Scarsdale. That's one of the few in Westchester career departments that don't go. Yonkers goes on, they send the pumpers. New York City sends a pumper. New Rochelle sends a pumper.
And I'll tell you something, you just said
And they're all EMTs.
three
They're all
important
trained
things.
to EMTs.
City, city, city.
Right.
This is a town. We don't have the tax base to play in the same sandbox as those 3 cities. They have sales tax, they have commercial strips, they have manufacturing strips. We have residents, okay? And so we need to figure out the fiduciary responsibility. The board needs to figure that out. How to get as good a product in a reasonable fashion. Because now what's going to happen now, you're making the fire department bigger, okay? You know, your predecessor or whatever eliminated the volunteers. The volunteers are benched, okay? But thank you for saying the 2 people that just passed away. But a lot of people in town don't know that the Eastchester Volunteer Fire Department was benched in 2007, okay? I see in the minutes we have interns. We let interns do ride-alongs. You know what an intern's called? It's called a volunteer. That's what they used to be. But we don't even have a program allowed to bring them back in. Don't want it. Now, we have a volunteer commissioner. He's also a paid retired fireman. Volunteer commissioner. I don't know which one of these 2 or 3 gentlemen are going to win. One's a volunteer, one's a paid guy. But as the first gentleman said, when are we going to get the answers right? We need to start looking at getting the answers right. Okay, if you want to bring young kids in as interns, then revitalize that volunteer program. Because you know something? All these paid guys go to the same training academy at Westchester Medical Center. They all go to the same, the volunteers and the paid guys stand side by side in that same smokehouse. You all get the same exact training. Maybe you need to dust off a few things. Thank you for your time.
I just want to say something. Any of you ever lived in Scarsdale? I had a house in Scarsdale for 21 years, okay? No one ever complained in Scarsdale that we didn't have good ambulance corps, police, or fire service in 21 years. I was pretty active. You can tell I'm a kind of an activist kind of guy. I was very active. 21 years, nobody complained. Now, you know how many square miles there are in the entire town of Eastchester? 5. 5 square miles. You know how many square miles there are in the entire Scarsdale area?
6?
6.8. Okay, so it's about 40% more than Eastchester. How do they do it? You know what the budget is for the fire department in Scarsdale? You must know that.
I think it's like 18,000, but that doesn't include their
No,
benefits.
no, the budget.
The fire budget, if you look at the Scarsdale budget,
The Scarsdale budget for fire department.
so, well, I'm sorry, Commissioner Keating brought this up a while back and had the treasurer look into it. And the Scarsdale fire budget does not include the employees' benefits or pension costs, because that's kept on the village side. So those are significant costs for our fire district. So whatever number you got from Scarsdale, you have to add in those benefits, because
Okay,
as a village, they have the mayor.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what their budget is, and then let's pick a number to add to it,
12
okay?
million, something like that?
12%? Okay, their
No,
budget,
I'm saying about.
I think their budget's $2 million. I'm pretty sure it's one.
I think you have to multiply that by about 5, maybe.
Okay, even if it's by 5, I think it's only $2 million. I just looked it up. Okay? Even if it's 10 million, they have 40% more area to cover than we do. And nobody's complaining.
But the population's about 18,000 and our population's about 33,000.
No, but you keep bringing up how long it's going to take
No, I'm
to
just
get
saying
to.
you're comparing just land. So their houses have a piece of property that might be 300
I understand,
by
but if somebody
300.
makes a call, you keep saying, well, if we're 2 minutes from Chester Heights, it could take 10 minutes to get there with the ambulance. They have that on steroids problem with size, right? But nobody's complaining in the response time. And their budget is maybe half of ours, max. And I think it's a whole lot less. But I'll be back next month and I'll tell you exactly what the budget is. But think about it, 40% more area to cover, maximum half the expense we have, half. And nobody's complaining, and I lived there 21 years, and nobody ever didn't move into Scarsdale because the fire service or emergency service wasn't up to par.
Good evening, everyone. Nathan Fiore, lifelong resident of the Village of Tuckahoe. I'm the other candidate for commissioner. Even all I want to say is happy Thanksgiving to everyone here in the village and towns. Maybe next year for budget time, you always use grants for anything in case you need equipment. We'll go to Amy Paulin again if you need anything, SCBA's or anything like that. Even for budget season coming up, if you want to go with it, ask the supervisor or two mayors to come into us and see if they have any input, and, just get them in here. And maybe they have some suggestions or something, just get them involved. We'll always work on something on there. Other than that, have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Mike.
My name is Michael Parisi. I'm a former volunteer. I'm going to tell you something. Back in the early 70s and 80s, I was an emergency medical technician. I worked for the city of New Rochelle, and I also worked for New Rochelle Hospital. And we used to go out on ambulance calls, and we had a lot of territory to cover. We used to cover part of Eastchester, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Pelham Manor, North Pelham, 95, and other surrounding areas. And we used to go out on a call with a doctor or a resident and 2 EMTs. Back then they had EMTs, not paramedics. And we would go on calls and we would get mutual calls back to back. Fire department was always welcome to help out the EMTs In the fire department back then, they were just starting to be EMTs. You had to carry an ambo bag. Does anybody know what an ambo bag is? Yes or no? An ambo bag is a bag that you breathe, that you pump when you're doing cardiac compressions after you put an airway into that person. And if you didn't have firefighters there to help you at 3 o'clock in the morning, the doctor can't help you because he's busy trying to get the patient stabilized and taking that patient downstairs or in a small elevator. You need firefighters to respond to help you. I don't care what, if you're saying that you don't need them, you need that firefighter and you need that piece of apparatus there. At times, a firefighter would drive the ambulance, the second ambulance to the scene, because the first ambulance would be tied up on 95 or in Pelham Manor, saving life, trying to save life. And it's nothing worse than going to a call with a doctor who's trained, using a defibrillator, putting an airway in, using medication to jolt that heart back into sinus rhythm, and the patient doesn't make it. So you take that home with you. I was involved in the Valentine's Day massacre in the city of New Rochelle, where I had the medical bag shot out from my hand, and our vehicles were down, and we couldn't get to them. But the fire department played a part in that. They backed us up. Whether they took an engine or a ladder truck. And back then, which none of you remember, there was a fire chief that was called Commissioner Bell, Fire Chief Bell. They didn't use the word commissioner. And he was very well putting that circuit forward to get firefighters to get properly trained and to be on the scene and to assist the EMTs and to get his people trained to assist EMTs and save what? Life. So you waste a half a gallon of gas, but if that person makes it, is it worth a half a gallon of gas or is it worth their life? And you guys didn't set this protocol. The state of New York set the protocol for firefighters to have a pension, for overtime. You're in the fire service business. You're protecting life and property. Right now, the fire service business is a tough business. With all the dry leaves that are going on outside, the fires that are kicking in, the one firefighter or parks person that was killed in the fire. There's a lot here that plays into this role. Nobody wants to see their taxes go up, at least I don't. But I don't want to see, God forbid, something happen to my property and my family because of taxes. If we didn't want taxes, then we shouldn't live here. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Okay?
Good night. Thanks, Michael.
Night.
Can I say something, Commissioner
Sure.
Cohen? I did service time between volunteer with the National Guards and active time. And many times we had to call the ambulance. Whether I was in Vietnam, I was stationed in England, I was stationed down south. Every time that ambulance got called out, whether it's to a minor call, into a wooded area, when we were on bivouac, I remember in 1983, we were on bivouac in Fort Bragg. It reached 117 degrees out in the field. And we had an officer come there, yell at us that we were the only people working. And we said we were from New York. And we had 40 guys pass out. The ambulance came, the fire department came, and even helicopters came. When we were in the cantonment area and someone got hurt in the barracks area or in the cantonment area, the ambulance came, and right alongside there was a fire truck. Whether it be a ladder truck, a squad truck, or a pumper, they were there. And I have no regrets. I congratulated them, watched those guys. They work just as hard as our men do. And I put our men up against any department. And talk about Scarsdale, I've been working in Scarsdale since 1973, and I'm still there as a part-timer. Okay? And I have no regrets. They have a good fire department, they have a good ambulance corps. I have no regrets about them. But I will tell you this, our department is one of the tops. You get outside of White Plains, don't forget Ardsley, Dobbs Ferry, Hastings, Tarrytown. They have good departments, but remember, guys, they're all volunteer departments. By the time that plectron goes off on them, they got to get dressed, run to that firehouse, get that rig, and on their way. And same way with their ambulance corps. Go to Ardsley. It's an ambulance corps. Sure, it's great. It's all volunteers, too. They do their job, and I'm not knocking them. They do their job. But I don't like my taxes going up, Mr. Zuckerman. I don't like my taxes going up one bit. I wish my salary goes up like that, but I'm glad to pay that because I see what we're getting here. These men here and the man sitting behind you, they work hard. I called Chief Yazzo 2 weeks ago because silly gardeners, I don't want to use other words, silly gardeners decided to blow the leaves and just pile the leaves on top of the fire hydrants. If you needed it near your house, the fire department couldn't even find the damn fire hydrant because it was buried. Chief Yazzo couldn't even find it. That man came out of the firehouse and walked down New Street to find out what the complaint was, and he found out gardeners blocked the fire hydrant. That's all things that people don't see. I see it because I work with them. I help them. I take notice of things that are wrong. If something's wrong, I call the chief or the assistant chief. I've even called the union president on a few different things. Got my answers. So this department is one of the best that I know of. And I have no complaints with other fire departments either. Thank you.
Yeah, there was a report done like 30 years ago, right, on our manning and what we should be having on force. And I can guarantee you that report was done today, it would be the same result, which was basically we are undermanned, and you have three options. Don't do anything, bring your manning up to about 85 or 90 people, or close 2 firehouses. You want to save money? We'll close 2 firehouses.
What was the second statement I heard?
Well, I'll tell you right now, we did a report today, it would cost about $75,000 to get a report done. It would take months. And I guarantee they would come back with the first thing saying we undermanned. That's the first thing.
What was the second thing you said, though? I couldn't hear you.
They could say, well, they gave on the last report, that was 30 years ago, they gave us 3 choices. Don't do anything, close 2 firehouses, hire X number of guys. I don't have the numbers offhand, but it was, I'm sure right now, if you looked at our numbers today, and a report was done today, they would tell you that we're undermanned. So you want to solve the problem, close 2 firehouses, lower your manning, we'll save some money. You want to close Tuckahoe and Chester Heights? Well, it's fine, we'll do it.
And as long as I'm on this board, there'll be no closing of firehouses.
Lucky firehouses open, and you want to man the trucks properly so that the firefighters are safe and the public is safe, it's going to cost some money. And that's. I'm not trying to be cavalier about that, but there's no other way to save money. And if you think we're wasting money on manpower, then the only answer to that is we'll start a couple of houses.
When we had the first, I wasn't nowhere near on this board. When we first reinforced that floor in Chester Heights, you could ask Mr. Parisi. We pulled a fire truck out there, brought it up to headquarters. The next day, the people were complaining, where's our fire truck? So we put it back there during the day and left it on the ramp. And then they kept the squad car on the ramp there overnight in case anything happened. So I don't think anybody wants a firehouse closed. Am I correct, Mr. Parisi? The people at Chester Heights went up in arms when they saw no fire truck down there.
I'm absolutely correct. I don't want my firehouse to be closed. I don't want my family to be in danger.
Absolutely.
Well, let's also take into consideration when the snows come, who's out there shoveling the hydrants? The firefighters. It's not the residents. The residents are throwing the snow in front of it.
Absolutely.
I happen to know because there's a fire hydrant in front of my house, and I clean that hydrant. And also, Engine 30 personnel come up and clean that hydrant also. Not the one that's by the firehouse, but they clean that one also too. And the surrounding and the confines of Engine 30, they clean that property. But the trend started a long time ago in Seattle, California. Why do you see back then? Why did you see a fire truck respond and an ambulance respond without a doctor? And they weren't technicians, they were called ambulance and they would load that person into the ambulance, and they would just take off. But the firefighters would help them, whether they administered first aid or oxygen, or use an ambo bag, and put an airway in, and then CPR. And correct me if I'm wrong, back then, and you know this as well as I do, when EMS was an EMS, and it was called Health and Hospital, and they ran a service that you didn't want to be a part of. You know it as well as I do, because we were both there. Didn't want to be a part of that. This is changing times, changing world, different strokes for different folks. You gotta pay for what you want. Nobody wants to pay for what they want, but if a major problem happens, you would want those people there. Take the visit of 1888.
Chief.
You didn't have enough firefighters, you didn't have enough cops, you didn't have enough nurses to get out there. People couldn't even walk. We don't want that to happen, but anything can happen in today's world. Nobody thought that the towers would come down, but they did.
Chief Yazzo wants to speak. Jeff, could you let Chief Yazzo, he had his hand up.
First of all, there's two things I want to say. First, I went on a long time tonight, and there's a lot of animosity in this room. And if anything I said led anyone to believe that I don't have enormous respect and love for our firefighters, they couldn't hear me. I'm talking about this board not coming up with 14.4% budgets. I love the firefighters. I got friends on the fire department. This is one thing has nothing to do with the other. I'm trying to impress upon you that I was a school teacher, and educators would love 14% budgets. And they would tell you that they think that we are doing a terrible disservice to our children by not having enough money to educate them in the way that all of us great educators believe we could do. So when people stand up and say, well, we got to have this, we got to have that, because it does this, it's good for safety, it's good to save lives, we feel, teachers, that we could have done so much better with 14% budgets. We would have kept people out of poverty. We would have given kids better education. They would have gotten better jobs. So many things we could have done with that money. But in this room, it's all about, no, we got to have it for the firefighters. Not for the fire, we got to have it for all the things the fire department needs. And when you have a board that was all firefighters and volunteer firefighters, as I started this thing, nothing will ever change.
Don't say that.
I was the union president. I was the union president in Bronxville for 12 years. Up there, the board were businessmen, CEOs of companies. They never taught a day in their life, but they had a responsibility to the community to keep the budget down, and we fought like crazy at the bargaining table. And as good as I was, 3 years in a row, we got 0% raises. 3 years in a row. Because they weren't teachers and friends of ours.
So you're
So
saying
wait, I would say that.
You're saying we give everything because we're friends of the firemen? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I'm saying, yeah, I do believe that the relationship is way too close. Way too close.
So in other words, we got to be enemies with the firemen?
I didn't say that.
Well, you said we're too close to them.
I didn't say you had to be enemies.
Well, you said we're too close to them. You said you know men on the fire department.
I didn't say that that's the reason. For whatever reason, you guys can't seem to keep the budget down. Whereas with teachers and DPW and police, the budgets are down.
Ex-Commissioner Ranalone, how many years the budget hadn't gone up? Ex-Commissioner Ranalone, go ahead, ask him.
For the last 20 years.
The last 3 years is 30%, since you're here.
For the last 20 years, the budget has gone up 100%. in 20 years.
That's not true. It's not true.
Look at it. Look at it.
Not true. I've checked it
In
out.
tw-
I
in-
disagree.
In 2004, the budget was 10 million something. For next year, the budget will be 23. So it's going up 100%, just over 100% in 20 years.
Okay, so why are we even talking about that? We're talking about the fact that you just gave us a 14.4% budget, and the last 3 years is 30%, and my school taxes went up 30% in 10 years.
That's right, because in previous years, budgets went up 1.2%, 3.1%.
Okay, so now you're going to blame it on the guys before
0%.
you.
Yeah,
Negative
on some of the
percent.
prior boards, yeah, there were things that we needed to do, and Chester Heights was ignored for almost 25 years. Why? Because no one wanted to pull a trigger and spend money. We had 1 year with 0%. How do you have 0% increase? You're giving raises of 2.5%. How do you do 0%?
I don't know. George Latimer gave a 0% increase for 4 years in a row.
Percentages are one thing.
How did he do that?
But look at the dollars. Okay, our school taxes, as you know, are well over half of our total tax. What's your fire tax? 50, what's yours?
That's not the
No,
issue.
it does make a difference. Because you look at dollar amount, you look at percentages.
Percent.
Why? If you got a fire tax that's $1,000 a year and you went up 15%, what's it costing you?
That's not the issue.
It is the issue.
That is
but you got
not
school
the issue.
tax that's costing you $15,000 a year and it goes up 10%. That's a big hit. So dollars, you got to look at dollars and percentages. Overall, your fire tax is nothing. What's our large fire tax to you? $2,000 a year? You pay $2,000 a year. I bet you didn't pay $2,000 a year in fire tax. That's a problem for you? What do you want to pay? $1,000 a year? $500 a year? What do you want to pay? For protection, what do you want? But school tax, 13, 14, 15 grand a year. We got to take that and we got to eat it. But no one says anything about school tax. We have budget workshops. Then you guys show up during those meetings, but you come after the fact, after the horse is out of the gate, out of the barn, you guys show up, start bitching. Why? You could come to our meetings beforehand, talk about it. We could have had a budget workshop. You could have been here for it. Nothing. Why not?
But why'd you vote against this last month?
Because I didn't want, no, honestly, I didn't want the firefighters next year. I wanted to wait a year. I wanted to wait another year. I knew it was going to be 14. I was happy at 8.5. That was my goal. Paul, some guys wanted to have an extra man on 31. Fine. So I said, well, we could wait a year. The guys didn't want to wait. That's why it's a 14 and change. That's all. But again, you got to look at dollars, man. You got to look at dollars, Jeff. It's not just a percentage.
Okay.
Because
Are you
percentage
done?
on $1,000 is a lot different than percentage on $15,000.
Are you done? I don't want to
I'm
interrupt.
done, yeah.
Okay. I respectfully disagree.
Okay.
Because regardless of what the school taxes are, they have to figure out a way every year of not increasing that by more than 3 or 4%.
Yeah, but the
And
superintendent
you don't
always
have
gets a
to
big
figure
raise.
that out. You don't have to figure that out. You just go up as much as you want. And as long as we
go up
have,
and we feel what's necessary. We're not spending money needlessly. We went up, there's a reason why I went to 14.5. It wasn't because we had nothing better to do with the money, and nothing because we wanted to spend the money on the taxpayers. But again, it's not a big increase dollar-wise. It may sound horrible percentage-wise, I agree, but dollar-wise, it's not a big increase. I'm sorry you don't see it that way, but that's how I see it.
okay,
All right,
I hear you.
thanks.
I hear you.
If I may reference something that the chairman mentioned a few minutes ago. There was a manpower study done that we received in February 8th of 1995
That's the one.
that recommended establishing the lieutenant's position and 17 firefighters in a group. That number 17 is the number of firefighters it takes to fight a fire in a one-family house, 2,000 square feet, without a basement, with the various jobs that have to be done.
Question, Commissioner. 1999, the volunteers were still in existence. Does that reflect anything in regard to the volunteers in that survey?
It's just it does. The number of volunteers were very minor at the time.
But you're quoting something there, you're quoting a statistic. Does it say in regard to what was the manpower strength of the volunteers back in 1999?
I don't remember what it was offhand. It may have,
Would those volunteers count as part of that manpower strength showing up at a scene?
no,
Then don't quote it.
because the average response from the volunteers at the time was like 1 point something average per alarm.
saying that?
I'm confident in saying that. Yes. What they also recommended was to consolidate, which the fire department did do. We used to have 5 engines. We eliminated an engine. We now have 4 engines. We used to have a rescue. We don't have a rescue anymore. The rescue was assigned to Station 3 in Bronxville. So the person who was on the rescue in Bronxville went to the engine. So now there was 2 firefighters on engine 29. We had our own dispatcher. They eliminated the dispatcher. The dispatcher was at headquarters. He went on engine 27. That gave you 2 guys on engine 27.
And you also lost the man on the tiller when we got rid of the tiller.
That's right. There used to be 3 guys up in the North End Firehouse, and once they got rid of the tiller, they
And you
eliminated
lost
the
that man.
Okay,
But I'm
question.
saying, the
Question.
fire department has consolidated to all it can.
Question.
In order to protect the residents of the town, we have to have 17 firefighters in a group. Station 5 in the North End currently has a lieutenant and 3 firefighters on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If a fire comes in on Garth Road, that's what they got up there, a lieutenant and 3 firefighters. If it's anything more than a fire in an oven, there's going to be a problem up there, because many of those apartment buildings don't have enclosed stairwells. Some of them don't have standpipes. So whatever water you need has to come in from the street. Some of those apartment buildings are set back 200 feet. You have to stretch a line from Garth Road down to the courtyard, into the building, up the stairwells, the open stairwells, to get to the fire. That takes manpower.
Question.
Go ahead.
You're quoting Garth Road. Garth Road right now has a determined protocol for response, correct?
Yes, Greenville comes in
What's
with
that
an engine.
protocol? What is the protocol for Garth Road response on a fire?
On a working fire,
Working fire.
Greenville comes in with a truck or
Someone
an
calls
engine.
up, says, my kitchen's on fire. What's responding?
Oh, from Eastchester?
From Eastchester.
3 engines and 2 trucks?
3 engines
Engines and 3 trucks, because Greenville Ladder 4 comes.
automatically on Garth Road?
If it's multiple calls or the caller's reporting a fire, yeah. Not for automatic alarms or anything like that.
So
but it-
Greenville's on an automatic response into our town?
Automatic aid, yes, for there. And we reciprocate by going to certain stores on Central Avenue for them. So they have that mall, I don't know if it used to be Marshall's or whatever, I think it's changed names, but it's
Okay.
like a 2-level, clothing store and that
The-
whole
the
strip
old S.
mall.
Kleins.
So if they get, so if they get a call there, we automatically respond with our
So,
truck
but
to
but
them.
quoting your, it's not 1 in 3 on the 1 engine showing up. For Garth Road, you're getting almost the entire fire department showing up there on a call,
Okay.
correct?
Okay, and that works out to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus 4 from Greenville.
Okay. Going back to, you delineated how many pieces we have and what we got rid of, the patrol, rescue. Rescue was rescue, correct?
Yep.
Rescue was, what was the primary function of that?
It had the only hearse tool in the department.
Right. But it was also the extra guys showing up, correct?
Right. And it was for a time.
We had 5 engines right now. We had 5
We
engines.
had 5 engines.
We currently have 4 in
Right.
operation, correct? So when the engine is not in the firehouse in Tuckahoe, correct? Where is it? Tuckahoe's the firehouse that is the one that's, I'll say, rotated out.
No, headquarters has no engine, they have the ladder truck
Headquarters has
there.
no engine,
So the
okay.
ladder truck left Tuckahoe because the new ladder wouldn't
Didn't
fit
fit.
in there, so it fits in the back of headquarters.
Okay.
And the engine 27 that was at headquarters
So
now
you
runs
you
out of
just
Tuckahoe.
flip-flopped it.
We just flip-flopped those 2 apparatus.
Okay. But what used to be 2 apparatus in Tuckahoe is now only 1.
Right. Correct.
Okay, and so what used to be the center of town engine is no longer there. Waverly.
Right, but there's an apparatus responding from there.
Right, but it's not putting any water on anything.
No, it's not an engine, no. There's actually, the captain's car comes out of there as well.
Okay, which it
A
always has.
captain and a firefighter.
Okay. All right, so on a tour right now, how many people are working on a tour?
14.
14. Well,
Excuse me.
what's the maximum?
It's
With,
15. It's a
Yes, it's
captain,
15.
2 lieutenants, and 12 firefighters.
right, we had, with the third person on engine 27, it's 15.
Is 15. And I think I guessed in the beginning part of this meeting tonight, which was a very long time ago, what's the minimum manning showing up on a tour? Is it the same number?
That's the minimum that we would, if one of those, if we were at that staffing and someone called in sick, we would call in overtime to cover that
So
position.
our maximum number and our minimum number is the same number? is what
No,
you're
the
saying?
maximum number, as I said, in January or February, if there's no vacations in that group, they could have additional 3 people. So it could be 18, potentially.
18.
But that's probably 7, 8 weeks out of the year, you know?
Okay, thank you.
Chief Yasso?
Probably shouldn't be doing this. Bruce Yazzo, 11 Huntley Road, Assistant Chief. Ray, anytime you want to talk about scheduling or overtime, you have my number, come to my office. As far as this guy with the Fugazi numbers, the last 10 years, total average of the budget has gone up. 2016, 0. 2017, 2.29. 2018, 0. 2019, 2.23. 2020, 2.6. 2021, 0. 2022, 2%. 2023, 9.7. 8.8. 2024, 5.3. And, well, again, unfortunately, 2025, 14. Over the 10-year average, it's 3.8%. And unfortunately, these people here are getting beat up from the sins of the past boards. The zeros, the zeros, the twos, the twos. But you want to throw out, I'm addressing the board, you want to throw out Fugazi numbers, go right ahead. That's fine, okay? I know what my members do day in and day out, okay? You're not there, okay? You retired after 30 years. I'm not sure why you retired, but you retired. I've had it. I've had it with this board getting beat up. I've had it with the big union member. I've had it with the union getting beat up. I was a member of the union for 35 years, okay? I'm a 37-year member of this department. My kids are 5th generation in this town, and I'm tired of it. Stop beating these people up. They're doing the best they can. It's a fire district, 1 fire chief, 1 assistant chief, 5 tour commanders, and 70-something firefighters. Not 3 police departments, 3 police chiefs, and a whole bunch of other police officers. No offense against them whatsoever. They are the greatest police officers and police departments in the world. 3 different school districts and 3 different highway departments. We are the only consolidated entity in this town. So you want to start comparing numbers, add everyone else's up. That's it. Have a great evening.
And Bruce, don't forget, you got 3 school chiefs also.
Let me ask you something.
Mike, come up to the microphone, please.
Right now, if the big one banged in, would you go or go home?
I'd go to the fire.
Assistant Chief? I'll be the first one there.
And so would we be there.
Right.
Without pay, without pay.
Right. If you had to assist a child at school and it was off hours, would you be there? Talking to you. If you had to assist a child at school, would you be there? Would you go there on a weekend if there was something going on with a child? Like what? What do you mean going on? If the child needed counseling or a parent needed help, would you be there? The principal asked me to go, yeah. But you're in the union, wouldn't you just go?
You were a union leader, you said.
Mike, you should address the board,
Yeah,
please.
wouldn't you just go?
Yeah, you should really address the board, not
Okay.
people in the audience.
You know,
Well, ask the question, and I'll come up and give you an answer.
okay, come on.
You bet. First of all, I have no idea why I would be called. I was a math teacher. I don't know why anybody needed counseling, then they wouldn't call a math teacher. Okay? They would call a counselor, and I don't even know why that would happen on a weekend. I mean, I've never heard of that in all my years of teaching, so I don't even understand the question. But I will say this. Everything I ever did in Bronxville or New York City or Rochester, where I taught in all these different places, wherever I went, I always did extra, and there was no such thing as overtime. No such thing as overtime. Here, if somebody goes in because of their contract, which is a great contract, they get overtime. Somebody calls in sick and they have to cover for that person, they get overtime, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes. There's no such thing as that for a teacher. No such thing.
You got in the wrong department, Jeff. What could I tell you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. When it comes to overtime, I did. I picked the wrong path.
That's been
Teachers have to work till they're 63 years old, or they can't get a pension. 63! 63! Well, they can't get their pension. Can you imagine that? Can you guys imagine that? So a teacher starts at 21, has to work 42 years before they get their pension.
Tell them to
Can you even imagine?
Tell them to do a different object. What could I tell you? There's some places don't even have pensions, you know? But that's not my fault. You chose that job. The other guy chose a job to climb trees. Somebody chose a job to put a window in. That's their job. That's their position. If they get a pension, they get a pension. Good luck to them. If they don't get it, and the person has to work 10 years to get a pension, or 35 years, that's what they chose. They're happy with it. You're not happy with it. I'm not happy with it. That's their business. You chose to be a school teacher? I don't begrudge you. God bless you. That's what you chose. And if you got to work 20 years or 30 years and you don't like it, change your job. What could I tell you, Jeff? But don't come here saying that because this guy gets called in. Many jobs that are on this earth today, if somebody gets called in after their duty hours or their working hours, they get paid for it. Well, you chose the wrong job. What could I tell you? I worked for the school for 37 years. If I got called in after my duty hours, I got paid for it. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I worked for Scarsdale Schools for 37 years. Anytime I got called in after 4:30, I got paid for it. I'm finished.
Any more comments from the public? Commissioner comments? All right, so before we adjourn, please have a moment of silence for Nick. You have comments? I'm sorry, no, Paul.
Very
I
short,
always forget, you always have something to say.
very short. On November 13th, on October 18th, I attended the wake for former town supervisor Anthony Calavita. On October 20th, I attended, along with the chief and assistant chief and 20 members of the department, attended the ceremony at the Fallen Firefighters Wall at the Westchester County Firefighter Training Center in Valhalla. On 11/13, attended the interviews for lieutenant and captain, and also on October, yes, okay. But the best thing that happened to me within the last month was my younger daughter got married on November 9th.
Congratulations, Paul.
Congratulations.
That's my best report I can give.
Thanks, Paul.
God bless.
Thank you.
All right, before we adjourn, please a moment of silence for Nick Spinelli and Joseph Henwood. Okay, thank you. All right, at this time is now about 8:48. I call to adjourn this meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good week.